Welcome to Crazy Canadian Killers. My name is Catherine, and today our case is the murder of Barry Sherman, who was 75 years old at the time of his death. He was worth $4.7 billion in Canadian funds, making him the 12th wealthiest man in Canada at the time. Along with his wife, Honey, who was 70 years old. They are believed to have been murdered by multiple people. They were found in their basement pool room by their real estate agents in their Toronto, Ontario mansion.
Toronto, Ontario is home to almost 3 million people and surrounds the western end of Lake Ontario. About half of its residents were born outside of Canada, and over 200 ethnic origins are represented there. If you find yourself at the University of Toronto, you could be studying dentistry, engineering, architecture, law, or medicine. The University of Toronto was the birthplace of insulin, stem cell research, and the first lung transplant happened there. On December 15th, 2017, police were called to the home of Barry and Honey Sherman at 50 Old Colony Road, just east off of Bayview Avenue and south of Highway 401 in the north end of Toronto, North York. It was a 12,000 square foot home that the Shermans had built in the 1980s, and they were in the middle of selling it. The Shermans were in the plans of buying in an area in the Forest Hill around downtown Toronto. They were going to demolish the house that was there and were building a 16,000 square foot home. The cleaning staff of the home let themselves in that morning, and they were busy doing their jobs when a pair of real estate agents arrived around mid-morning with a couple interested in buying the property. After showing them around the main story, the agents took the couple downstairs to the lap pool and hot tub. There they discovered Barry and Honey's bodies on the floor next to the pool. Both of their necks were tied with leather belts to a metal railing slightly over a meter high around the pool. Barry was seated, his legs crossed on the pool deck. Honey was on her side with a bruise on her face. Coats were pulled down over their shoulders, restraining their arms. They were facing away from the water and fully clothed. Barry Sherman was born February 25, 1942, and his father was a part owner of a zipper manufacturing company, and his mother was an occupational therapist. His father, although, passed away when Barry was 10 years old of a heart attack. Barry was extremely intelligent and entered into the engineering program at the University of Toronto at the age of 16 and graduated with honors in 1964, and then went on to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and received a PhD in astrophysics in 1967 at the age of 25. Barry would work the summers as a delivery driver for his uncle's pharmaceutical company, picking up urine samples for pregnancy tests. After Barry finished his PhD, he then purchased that pharmaceutical company when his uncle passed away. The company produced the first Valium in Canada, was the largest manufacturer of a penicillin, a diabetes pill, and a sweetener called saccharin. In 1969, he swapped shares into a company called Barr Laboratories, controlling a third of Barr's stock, which manufactures Prozac. In 1972, he sold his company, which was called Empire, to another pharmaceutical empire for 57,000 shares. He started his own company called Apotex in 1974 and became Canada's largest domestic pharmaceutical manufacturer. At the time of Barry's death, Apotex employed over 10,000 people with over 260 products selling in over 115 countries. His revenues were about $1.5 billion annually. In 1971, Barry married Honey, who was also a University of Toronto graduate and of Austrian descent. They had 4 children together: Jonathan, Lauren, Alexandra, and Kayleen. Barry was known to be a workaholic and often spent family vacations diving into work documents. He was also known for driving his vehicles until they fell apart. He had actually one vehicle that was producing carbon monoxide into the passenger side of the vehicle. Honey bought him a new car for his 50th birthday, and he asked her to take it back, and she did. They were good people who donated $50 million to the Jewish community and loaned money to Apotex employees in need and $50 million of medicines to disaster areas.
Although generous with their charities, Barry was described as a wretched and manipulative person. One rival company was considering planting drugs in Barry's car due to issues of patent infringement and trying to lure Apotex employees into admitting these infringements. Sherman had been reported to be a bully who sued the government so many times that it was actually costing taxpayers millions of dollars in legal fees. He had 1,200 open cases against the government at the time of his death.
One doctor from the University of Toronto who was overseeing the production of a blood disorder treatment broke her confidentiality agreement with Barry because she did not agree that the drug was effective and safe. She lost her job because the University of Toronto did not want to lose their donation from Barry instead of backing her up. A book called The Constant Gardener was inspired by this situation. In 2011, Barry was sued by the children of the uncle he had bought Empire Pharmaceuticals from, Barry's cousins, for $1 billion, stating instead of giving them their share of the sale, Barry used that money to purchase Apotex instead. In retaliation, Barry cut off financial support to these children. In 2017, the Ontario Superior Court Justice ruled against these cousins in favor of Barry, stating their claims were fanciful. Barry claimed the cousins owed him $300,000 in legal fees for their lawsuit. Barry's cousin Carrie Winter said that he had not only the motive to kill Barry, but the opportunity, since he was working at the time as a construction supervisor and could set his own hours, and that he had imagined killing Barry, but says he did not, and was watching Peaky Blinders on Netflix, then attending a Cocaine Anonymous meeting that night. The home at 50 Old Colony Road in North York they had built in the 1980s was deemed unacceptable by Barry, who proceeded to sue the contractors and regain from them $2.3 million, which was almost the whole price of the house. Barry was a target of the Jewish Defense League and Israel's largest drug manufacturing company called Teva Pharmaceutical Industries. Honey Sherman's sister, Mary Sheckman, believed the motive for the killings may have been religion, that the Shermans were strong supporters of Israel and was very vocal about being Jewish. Mary said that there were a lot of people of a certain ethnicity going through the house at a certain time, and Honey would use phrases that were not politically correct. Apparently, Honey had gone to a lecture about stopping money from getting into Muslim fundamentalist hands.
In politics, Barry would make efforts to financially support the parties that would only be in his favor, to the point of breaking lobbyist rules, so much so that he was almost banned from political lobbying for a term of 5 years.
2 weeks before the murders, Barry Sherman asked his son Jonathan Sherman to repay him tens of millions of dollars that Jonathan had borrowed for his storage business. They, although, had a close relationship both professionally and personally. According to documents released by the court in January 2022, Barry owed $1 billion to other companies leading up to his death, which he said he was not going to pay. The rumors and news reports were that Barry was more concerned with self-righteous prevailing than with making money, and would try to win any war at any cost, crossing ethical lines over copyrights. Barry himself had admitted there were long-running conflicts between Apotex and the major pharmaceutical companies over drug patents, and admitted he was wondering why he hadn't been knocked off by someone a pharmaceutical company would hire.
On December 13, 2017, Barry had met Honey in his office at Apotex, where they went over the designs of the new house. Honey was planning to leave for a vacation to Miami in a few days, and Barry was going to join her a week later. It was the last time the couple were seen alive. Later that evening at their home, Barry sent Apotex employees an email about a drug the company was developing. He did not call anyone during the night, which they said was unusual because he frequently suffered from insomnia. The next day, December 14th, he did not show up at Apotex, and on December 15th, Honey and Barry were found.
The police were called, and the Toronto Police Service Homicide Squad investigated, and the deaths were treated as suspicious. Honey's cell phone was found in a bathroom. Apparently, she never apparently she never used, suggesting she might have gone there to call for help, but might have been overpowered in the process. Barry's gloves, as well as paperwork related to an inspection of the house, were left on the floor just outside the garage door on the way to the basement pool. A window had been left open to allow a recently painted room to air out, and a basement door was unlocked, but that was normal. Someone who may have known this, as well as the interior layout of the house, may have been able to escape through a neighboring backyard after the murders. Post-mortem examination showed that the cause of both deaths was ligature neck compression, strangulation caused by a binding or tying, a strangling force of something other than the person's own body weight. Toronto Police Service told the news media that there was no indication of forced entry into the Sherman home and that their investigation did not include a search for any suspects. There was no note left by the deceased, but we're thinking it was a possibility that it was a murder-suicide. They thought this because Honey suffered face injuries and Barry did not. Initial police speculation she was the victim and Barry was not. The Sherman children, although, issued a statement urging the police to conduct a thorough criminal investigation and were upset that the police thought it was a murder-suicide. The house had several entrances. Both Barry and Honey would have been likely to let someone in who asked for help. A private investigator was hired to look into the deaths and a retired chief forensic pathologist for Ontario to conduct another autopsy. The second autopsy established that the couple's cause of death was homicide. The couple was strangled by belts after their hands were tied, and the investigation concluded that the couple had been killed in a targeted attack. There was a search and seizure of electronics in Barry Sherman's workplace at Apotex, and investigators methodically reviewed material and different investigative measures. In late 2018, the family had offered a $10 million reward in the couple's homicide investigation for any information that leads to the arrest and prosecution of the suspect, claiming the police investigation had failed to collect important evidence, even though over 50 officers interviewed 200 witnesses and collected over 2,000 hours of video surveillance from neighboring homes, and police had obtained 37 warrants related to the investigation. At the end of 2019, the private investigators working for the family closed their investigation. There had been speculation about who might have been responsible, particularly given Barry's many business associates with criminal records and those who had been angered by his actions. In November 2020, Toronto police said they had identified a person of interest, then 2 days later clarified that it could only be one person or multiple people. On December 14, 2021, Toronto police released security camera footage of a suspect. A 20-second video of a person dressed in dark clothing can be seen walking down a sidewalk on a snow-covered night in the neighborhood. In April 2022, Toronto police said the case was unfortunately old and no charges had been filed against anyone. In December 2022, the reward increased to $35 million. In 2023, Jonathan Sherman announced he was donating $52 million to the Toronto Jewish community so he could buy the Honey and Barry Memorial Arena on the grounds of an existing Jewish community campus in Vaughan, Ontario, consisting of 2 NHL-sized hockey rinks and supporting facilities.
Thank you very much for watching. My name is Catherine, and this is Crazy Canadian Killers, video number 42 on December 8th, 2023. Please feel free to press the like button as it helps with my exposure, and subscribe to my channel. I try to put out a new video every week. See you in the next case.